Do you have credit? Stay tuned for these 8 tips on how to turn that around and get your scores up quick, fast, and in a hurry. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of More About Mortgages. Ian Moore here with Premier Mortgage Lending. And today we're going to be talking about 8 steps to improving your credit scores fast. As we all know, credit is very important and plays a substantial role in determining your interest rate, your monthly payment, your PMI, everything. It's huge when buying a house, when buying a car, really anything. So to improve your credit, we're going to run through 8 steps designed to help people get their scores up quickly. Step 1, guys, is making your payments and paying your bills on time. As we all know how important that is as an adult in this life, we have to pay our bills on time. Paying them on time with regularity and consistency is the easiest way and by far the simplest method to maintaining and keeping your scores in good standing. Step number 2, make frequent payments. If you use your card or your credit card at a gas station, pay it off later that day or later that week. If you buy groceries using your credit card, pay it off later that day or later that week. Make frequent payments that are around the same amount. Guys, credit is determined based highly off of patterns. A lot of the algorithms that go in determining your credit score are pattern based, which is why, for instance, if you're somebody that has made kind of smaller incremental payments on your credit accounts over the years, and then maybe with your tax return or with a lump sum payment that you received, you paid down an enormous chunk of one of your accounts hoping and thinking that it would increase your scores, and your scores actually went down, yeah, that's been a big confusion point for a lot of people in the past, but it's because of the fact that your scores are determined through patterns, and your typical patterns are smaller incremental payments. So that one large chunk payment that you just threw at one of your accounts, that's outside of your normal pattern. Therefore, it's going to throw a hiccup into the algorithm, and your scores are going to drop instead of go which way you wanted them to, which is up. So make frequent similar payments on all of your trade lines. That's a huge important step here, guys, to having and maintaining good credit. Ask for higher credit limits is step number 3. So with the trade lines and active trade lines that you currently have open, reach out to those creditors. If you have a card through American Express or MasterCard, reach out to them, ask for a higher credit limit, because them offering and issuing that higher credit limit is already a showing of you having good credit and having a good standing with your credit. So keep that in mind. Don't be hesitant or don't be afraid to reach out to your active trade line creditors and ask for a higher extension with your credit limits. Dispute any credit errors on your current credit report. If you have a credit report in front of you, or if you can pull one of your credit reports, a recent credit report, look for the errors that are on there and dispute them with the 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. A lot of folks don't realize that they have this ability, but you can do this. You know, nobody's perfect, no company's perfect, even Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax aren't perfect. Heck, we know that from the recent breach a year and a half or 2 years ago. However, you can reach out to them to dispute any errors on your credit report, guys. And there's errors on your credit reports. There's always going to be errors. So reach out, even no matter how minor it is, getting that fixed, getting it kind of dialed in to be accurate is going to help you in the long run and could prove to get your scores up. Another tip here, guys, and it's number 5 on our list here of 8, is become an authorized user. I've used this a lot in the past for my clients, guys, that have needed a quick boost with their credit scores. It is becoming an authorized user on somebody else's already in good standing credit account that has been open and activated and has been used for at least 1 year. So becoming an authorized user is as simple as reaching out to mom or dad, maybe a friend of yours or a sibling who already has a credit, solid credit, and they have an active trade line open for at least 1 year or more, that they are willing to allow you to become an authorized user on, meaning you now become the beneficiary of their good credit and their repayment ability. And it helps you in a short period of time boost your score right up if you need to get a higher score for either a lower rate to qualify for your mortgage or just because you want a better loan term program. Another aspect, guys, of credit that I like to tell my clients who need to boost their scores up a bit is ultimately use a secured credit card. If they have a lack of credit history, that's going to hurt your scores. Sometimes people's scores will be on the lower side just because of a lack of history. Not just because they haven't been able to pay their bills on time, but they don't have many trade lines in their active history. So take out a secured credit card, use it, pay it frequently, pay it often, and make sure that once you do use it to a certain limit, you're not going above that limit and it's outside of your normal pattern. So if your normal pattern is to have about 50% of that card's limit used at any time, don't go above that halfway mark or that 50%. So don't use 3/4 of that limit on the card and then leave it there. Make sure it stays at 50% of that limit or less, because that's gonna help create your pattern and then keep you on that same pattern, which is gonna develop high credit scores in a shorter period of time than you ultimately would have had your credit go up. Step number 7 is keep your credit cards open. If for whatever reason you don't plan on using a card for the foreseeable future, instead of calling that creditor and closing that account down, just pay it down to a zero balance and leave it there. It's not going to build interest at a zero balance, and it'll essentially just sit there. But having it sit there with an open account at a zero balance will be much more beneficial for you as the consumer than to close that account out, because that closing of the account could lead to a drop in your scores with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, opposed to just leaving it at a zero balance and paying it down to a zero balance might actually lead to a boost in your scores. Last and certainly not least here, guys, number 8, the 8th step to boosting your credit scores quickly is mix it up. If you're somebody that doesn't have a tremendous amount of credit history or active trade lines, or you're somebody that has a lot of active trade lines, but they're majority, based on your credit, your 2, car loans between you and your spouse and maybe 1 credit card or so, mix it up a little bit. Get a secured credit card. If you have secured credit cards, get an unsecured credit card. It's best to have a mix of different types of trade lines in your credit history, because then the algorithms will have more content to actually use with determining your scores themselves. So as a loan officer, I've had people apply for mortgages with me who have had no credit. Not poor credit, but a lack of history to where Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax have not had what they needed to determine actual scores. So their scores report as NA. These are not hopeless cases, guys. I've had plenty of these borrowers in the past that, who have applied having no credit, and I've been able to help them get credit scores, decent credit scores, fairly quickly. In fact, I'll share one example with you guys. About 6 months ago or so, I had an application come in, a single woman looking to buy a house on her own. She had no credit history in her 40s, so she hadn't had a lot of credit in the past in her lifetime. She just hasn't taken out a lot of credit. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax were all reporting NA for her. I instructed her to become an authorized user on one of her brother's already existing in good standing credit accounts, and then also to take out a couple secured credit cards. Doesn't matter the source of those credit cards, whether it be Capital One or her bank, anywhere, as long as she can take out secured credit cards. Doesn't matter even the limit at that point, because again, she didn't have a history. So having any credit limit extended to her is a positive for her and will ultimately lead to scores being generated. Well, not 3 weeks had gone by from when I initially spoke with her to where I re-pulled her credit, and she had scores in the high 600s and low 700s. So keep that in mind, guys. If you're somebody with a lack of credit history, don't let that stray you away from buying a house or starting the process to buy a house, because there's a good chance, better chance than not actually, that your loan officer can steer you in the right direction and help get your scores up pretty quickly and you into your new home. So thanks for joining me, guys. These have been the 8 steps to developing higher credit scores quickly. If you find any of these steps helpful, don't hesitate or be afraid to implement them, because it will ultimately help you in the long run and make things more affordable for you and easier to obtain credit in the future. Ian Moore with Premier Mortgage Lending. Thanks for joining me for another episode of More About Mortgages, guys. Everybody have a great week.